Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in the hands of Ms. Lisa Lambert.
This is a pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, February 27th. We have approval of minutes from February 20th.
Any issues, anyone?
Appeals, we have requests for a waiver of the noise ordinance on March the 2nd from 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. on LaSure Road.
I'd ask that we move this to 12 o'clock a.m.
Okay.
Which one?
The first one. We have a request for March the 8th from 6:30 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. Fort Condy Inn. March 16th, 11 a.m. until 11 p.m. on Charleston Street. March 23rd, 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. Public Safety Memorial Park. March 30th, from 12 p.m. until 4 p.m. Bragg Avenue.
Okay. Any issues?
No.
Pen and Carol?
No, sir.
No,
Okay.
everything good.
Oh.
Son of St. Patrick, dude.
We have 3 more.
I don't. I don't know. They might have a ride at Callahan's if we do that.
May 4th, from 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. in Medal of Honor Park. May 18th, 10:30 a.m. until 7 p.m. in Medal of Honor Park. And May 4th, from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. in Langen Park.
Good. Councilman Woods?
Public hearings today is the public hearing to rezone property located at 255, 257, and 259 Dogwood Drive from R1 to B1.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davis?
could I get Mr. Linder to explain to us what's going to happen with this? Dogwood Drive.
I increased the volume because they said they couldn't hear. If the volume's low, there's no buzz, and then they can't hear. So there's feedback with it. So I believe it's the cell phones mixed in with the speakers and the microphones.
Councilmember Daves, we got some input from the public on that one, and there is an issue with the UDC that I think needs correction. Out of an abundance of caution, there was an attorney representing an aggrieved party on that. And so what we would like to do is table it for now. We have on the agenda to re-advertise it and do it make sure we have the full 15-day notice period in there. There was a credible threat of somebody taking action against it if that was not done.
Okay, so the way I understand it is that we had a public hearing scheduled for today. So if someone shows up, we got to let them go ahead and speak, right?
I don't follow.
We have a public hearing on this matter scheduled for today.
Correct.
So if someone shows up to speak, we need to let them go ahead and speak.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah, okay. But when we get down here to the item itself, which is 64019, we are going to what? Table that?
That would be best, yes.
And then we've
And then
got at the end of the agenda to call another public hearing on this matter on April 2nd. And then on April 2nd, the item itself would again appear on the agenda and be held over 1 week to be voted on the next week.
On April 9th, that's correct.
Thank you.
And again, this is just to correct technical defects that have been pointed out of an abundance of caution. And I believe Councilman Reynolds will have something he wants to propose to everybody that I've drafted up at his request.
Okay, but wait a minute, let me finish. I want to wrap up on this item before we get to Mr. Reynolds' item. But so I think I've stated that correctly. Anybody that comes down here today and wants to speak on that item can speak on that item. But when we get to the item itself, we're going to table that and then call for another public hearing on April 2nd, at which time the item again will appear on the agenda and then be held over pursuant to council rules until the following Tuesday, April 9th, at which time it would be up for a vote.
That is correct.
We would need to also suspend the rules and take this up today because this is for really next week.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Reynolds, then Mr. Carroll.
In order to resolve an issue that was discovered in UDC, in which it reads in 6455D 3D, it just says, at the conclusion of the hearing, this is regarding rezoning, the city council shall approve with conditions, or deny the amendment. So those are the only three options at the conclusion of a public hearing, and that has not ordinarily been our practice. Our practice has been to have a public hearing, the item would show up on the agenda, and then the following week, we'd either take it up or hold it over or something to that effect. My suggestion, along with consultation of Mr. Linder, is to just strike that section D, where it says the city council shall really only have these three options: approve with conditions, or deny the amendment. I think it's been common that from time to time we've had to hold rezonings over to get additional information, whatever. So that would be my suggestion. And I'd like to introduce this today so that we can make sure we have it straight going forward.
Mr. Carroll?
What's the correction needed in UDC? Is this what Ben's talking about? Or is that something going back to Joe?
Yeah, it's the correction of 64-5-5D4, I believe it is. Is that correct?
3D.
65-5-5, capital D, 3, lowercase d, which reads in full: at the conclusion of the hearing, i.e. the public hearing on whatever, on the zoning item, the city council shall approve with conditions, or deny the amendment. I find that to be excessive verbiage. I don't think it takes into account the procedure that we've been using for years down here. And the other thing is, as Councilman Reynolds says, it doesn't theoretically give the council discretion to hold it over or take a little more time on it. I think that subsection D doesn't really do anything. And also, it says shall in there. I know we had some discussion about this, but shall is a very powerful word in legislation. And you don't want to have a shall in there under any circumstances where you want the council to have flexibility.
Well, I said most of my thoughts on that already. Said it to you in a short brief, so whatever the council decision.
Again, I really think striking this will just help it to conform to the practice that the council has been using.
You've read my thoughts. I think Corey, Joe,
You have something, Mr. Penn?
No.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Today is the public hearing to fix costs for demolition of structures at 611 McDonald Street, 559 North Carolina Street, 1156 Oliver Street. Public hearing to consider the application of Top Cat Limousine LLC to operate a shuttle service. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Derek Bulware wants to give an update on the 2024 Project Homeless Connect event held January 26th. Charlie McCants wants to inform the council about the ABA Championship and League meeting coming to Mobile in April. Tracy Glover has comments about the welfare of the horses used in Mardi Gras parades. Marvin Liu comments calling for togetherness in confronting gun violence. Reggie Hill, land use best practices regulating the unassigned fund balance and public safety. CIP resolutions held over. 21176, authorized contract with J. Payne Organization for pool upgrades at Taylor Park. Resolutions held over. 08177, approved purchase order to Southern Emergency and Rescue Vehicle Sales for 3 ambulances. 08178, approved purchase order to Syntec for annual renewal of fueling system software. 08179, approved purchase order to ThinkGuard for annual renewal of network protection software. 09180, allocate funds from unassigned fund balance in the general fund to capital improvement fund MPD mounted police facility. 4181, authorize the purchase of 6160 Gaston Loop Road West for MPD mounted police. 60.
Yeah, Mr. Carroll?
What are we gonna do with the other $11,000?
It's replaced the cost. The contract price is $839 plus closing costs. So
60,
I do have one additional question regarding the purchase of Gaston Loop Road West. What sort of improvements are we expecting out there? It looks like it's already used as a horse, stable. What should we expect coming down the road as improvement wise?
Over the next couple of years, there's going to be some improvement to the infrastructure of the property, the septic tanks, the roads, as it gets more worn. Eventually, a covered riding arena will be added at some point. We don't have a timeline on that. But even with the additional improvements, we'll see a multi-million-dollar savings over trying to build one from scratch, in excess of $5 million savings if we try to go ahead and build it on the Moffett Road property by scratch. But we're going to take those as they come, and you'll see them as they come up.
Authorized settlement agreement and release of claims. Ordinances being introduced 09018. Ordinance amending Chapter 15, Article 3, Section 15-72 of the Mobile City Code and setting term limits for membership on the Mobile Public Library Board.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
I'd like to ask Mr. Carroll, what spurred this? Is there some issue that this aims to address, or is this just a general policy decision?
Well, the request actually came from the library itself and their board. Their representative asked, about 2 weeks ago, because of some of the unlimited terms and terms that have been served by some of the members on the board, that they have some term limits, like some of our other, stronger boards, where they have some turnover in ideas and strength and age. And that's where this is coming from. Wasn't done by me. It was at their request.
Mr. Day.
I'd ask that we consult with Ms. Minikin, see what her opinion of these sort of changes are, and she may say, this is certainly.
It wouldn't have come to us unless it already have come from their board through their, I forget what their new hire is over there for their, I forget what they're calling it now, but he's at every council meeting. I'll be glad to introduce you to him and let them explain to you why they'd like to have this done. I think it actually helps us because it allows for different people to actually be involved with the board and some changeover where we're not always having the same people for 20 years.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I think it would be, since we have this consultant on board, maybe we consult with her and just get her feedback. And, she may be, this is her specialty. So that would be my suggestion. I'm not raising objections to this per se.
Well, I hear you. I'm just saying, is that one that we had, or is that going to be another cost to us to add this one to our contract? And it's such.
Just to get an opinion on, she'll have an opinion on it. If you're gonna change the ordinance, you tell the board members and the terms, she can look at it in short order to get her opinion.
It's fine.
Mr. Days.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think it'd be a good idea also to get her, run it by her, get her opinion. I want to remind everybody that the Alabama legislature, in its infinite wisdom, currently has before it a measure which would make the terms of library board members throughout the state subject to the will of the appointing officer. In other words, any member at any time could be removed by the appointing authority. So as long as the legislature is wanting to dip their fingers, as they usually do, into municipal matters, we might want to hold off on this until we see what they end up doing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm glad that Councilman Carroll brought this kind of to the front, because I have some concerns too regarding some boards that we have here in the city of Mobile. As an elected official, when we get in office, the person who's already in that board position, we have to allow them to continue to serve in that capacity. What I would like to know, and I'm asking our attorney and city attorney as well, from an ordinance standpoint, is it anything that we could put in place that as elected officials, when we get in a particular position, could we change board members? Similar to, boards like Moss, is that a state legislative, or is that something that we can do here with an ordinance in the city of Mobile?
Well, Moz has got a separate state statutory regime, if you will, that creates it and sets up how their board members are appointed. The council appoints the members of the Moz board, but once they're on the board, they're more or less there until their term expires, until the appointment comes back up again. As to, did you have a specific question about the library board or?
So let's take that. So it's nothing that we can do from an ordinance wise to affect that change.
Remove existing board members
Could we have an ordinance in place?
to do that?
Yes.
Unless it conflicts with state law, I would say you could write an ordinance that would say it's the council that appoints each one of them, but the council has to approve each one of them. So I think you could have an ordinance that would say the council can remove someone, but I don't know that it could be done unilaterally just by a single council member. But I think you could have an oversight provision where the council as a whole, maybe on the recommendation of a council member, could remove a board member. I think Mr. Woods agrees with me on that.
That's it. It's the power of the council. It is the council person's ability. You need 5 votes to do it.
So the council,
I think it wants more conversation.
Yeah, it's,
For example, the lab board.
Yeah.
We could not remove anybody because whatever the reason was, and so there are probably certain boards that you have the ability to do and some that you don't. So I think it's a bigger question, needs to be researched instead of just shooting from the hip here of how to do this.
Mr. President,
Hold up, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Day, then you.
I agree with the mayor. I think anything having to do with the terms, term limits, service at will needs to be considered carefully. It needs to be considered in light of what the particular board is. That there's an advantage to having board members. There's an advantage and a disadvantage to having board members who have length of service on boards. Because on many of these, LAD, the art museum, the library, it takes a while once you join the board to really understand how the organization works. And there's some advantage in having members with tenure on these boards. At the same time, the key is to put good people on the boards. That's how you solve this problem, is to put good people on the boards. And anyway, I think you'd have to look at it very, very carefully. It depends on the entity.
Mr. Carroll.
well, I agree with Mayor. I agree with Joe. I've got firsthand experience there. I was elected to council first time in 2005. The previous councilman, Thomas Sullivan, if you remember, self-appointed himself to the water board, if you remember that issue. Being that he was on the council at the time he was serving, he could not receive the benefit or compensation from the water board. But once I took office, then he could receive the benefit from the water board, but also he could remain on the water board. The legal recourse from that or response from Wedemark and from Roswell is that the State Enabling Act appointed him for a number of years to serve, even though I was at that time I would have been the appointee, but he appointed himself. It was the same thing with the housing board and the airport authority, and I think 4 or 5 other boards in the city at that time. There were 6 other boards that I wanted to appoint to where the appointee served also for a number of years, but at the council person's discretion, which then required a number of votes to be removed, but it just didn't make any sense to do it. That's where the weight comes from. So they're exactly right. So, but in the case of the library, I think there's a major need for good people to be on these boards. And a lot of times when you have really good people, you don't want to change them. That's why they go from council person to council person, because everybody knows the same people. But however, we're getting to a point in time where some people, may want to rotate off or need to rotate off. And to be honest, there's some boards where we need some younger people. And that's just my thinking. I don't know what the library wants to do, but I think as we get older and the city grows a little bit more, then we'll start seeing a few changes. Appreciate you.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just want to add my 2 cents, not that that really matters. I just want to point back. I just want to point back to the Mobile Tree Commission. Obviously, there's a membership there. I would like to see something like this across the board for those that we can. It says the members of the commission shall serve at the pleasure of the city council. So if there's a way to incorporate that moving forward and as many of these as possible, the way I look at it is that whatever board seats that District 6 appoints, it's not Josh's seat. It's District 6's seat. And, so it's my duty per the people that elected me and put me in office to make sure that we do have good people and people that are active in communicating across all of our boards. Just at this point, I've only met a handful of my appointees at the moment. So that just kind of shows that I really, as far as District 6, I want active appointees. So that's, if anything we can do to put some language in that, I would rather do that, but also do want to do it effectively and appropriately.
Madam Clerk?
64019 is the rezoning on Dogwood Drive, which will be tabled. Consent resolutions being introduced, 37, 183, 184, 185 are recommending approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a special events retail liquor license to Callahan's Irish Social Club on Marine Street. 37, 184 is the issuance of a retail beer retail beer off premises only liquor license to Parkway Food Mart on Dolphin Island Parkway. And 185 is issuance of a retail beer off premises only liquor license to Parkway Liquor on Dolphin Island Parkway. 40, 186, 187, 188 are fixing the cost of demolition of structures on McDonald Street, North Carolina Street, Oliver Street. 58, 189, declare weeds noxious, group 1654. 60, 190, approve award of special bonus to administrative services employee of the month. 60, 191, 192, 193, and 194 are determining appropriations to St. Paul's Episcopal School, Kingdom Covenant Connections, Inc., Mothers Involved Against Gun Violence, and Providence Foundation serve a public purpose in approving payment. Resolutions being introduced, 195, authorized agreement with RMO software agreement with CWS Group for software subscription for MPD record management, $531,000. 196, approved purchase order to kitchen equipment and supply for dishware and assorted serving supplies for convention center, $176,134.28. 197, approved purchase order to Quantico Tactical for night vision binoculars for MPD, $15,076.80. 198, approved purchase order to Sunbelt Fire for fire bunker gear for mobile fire rescue, $46,200. 199, approved purchase order to Sunbelt Fire for fire boots and helmets, $39,221. 200, authorized contract with Duplantis Design Group for design services for new community center on Dolphin Island Parkway, $63,000.
Yeah, I would like to say I'm glad to see this. Just our vision is to really to create a new senior sales center, a recreation center, and also a boys and girls club. We know that the current sales center down on DIP have more attendance than the Conner Hudson sales center out on Hillcrest Road. So just imagine if we have a new facility out on DIP, the attendance, how it would be now. Because right now we have an old building compared to a new building out there on Hillcrest. So I'm very excited to see this item before us, and I'm looking to get some more in community engagement later on and everything. So, thank you.
21201, authorized change order with Bay Area Contracting for citywide facility parking lot resurfacing and spot street repair, $336,489.50 increase.
Mr. Reynolds.
This is a extension of a contract that was $1.1 million originally, it appears, and it's going up by another $336,000. And then it's got a portion in here that is going to have street patching sites, remainder of funding after park resurfacing. Where is that money going to be spent? And we had approved that larger patching contract last week, I believe. Have we identified the locations for all of those?
Yeah, so let me answer first.
Okay.
Let me ask you your first question first. Well, this contract had 10 different park sites in it. Initially, y'all had made a $1.4 million allocation. When we took bids, it was only about 1.1 million. So all we're doing is trying to spend the balance of those funds. We got 3 more park sites or 3 more city facilities. The Hope Community Center, Lions Park, and Azalea City Golf Course. Those parking lots are in the change. And then we've got a little bit of a balance in there to try to take care of a few more spot repairs, some of the bigger spot repairs. We got real good unit prices on this. So that's kind of the hopes is that we can do that. And the spot repair contract is really what we'll do this type of spot repairs, but we wanted to leave that little bit of balance in there where we could do it with this just because of the unit prices. These unit prices are probably in the $140 range, where the other contract is approaching $300. So it's pretty expensive, the spot repairs. And part of the reason we've got the good prices here is because there's generally no traffic control associated with it. They're generally working on sites that are, there's not that extra added cost.
So do we have locations of where we're going to?
Not for this renewal, but Public Works will be managing that spot repair contract. So what they've got is a lot of what's called into 311, and I think they're compiling that list. I don't know if they physically have something that we can hand to you, but we can check and get it if they do.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what locations. Of course, you and I have had a lot of discussion. There are places, throughout my district and neighborhoods or whatever, where they've just got a couple of bad areas, and we don't have to resurface the entire neighborhood. If we could just take care of a little small section,
yeah,
we can get by for another, few years.
Yeah, that's right. Where I need y'all's help is that if you got the person that's calling you about a single patch, that's probably not the contract we need to be dealing with. This contract, the spot repair contract, needs to be one where it's just really beyond what Public Works can do. If you got, 50 patches on top of one another, that's the ones we need to just grind it all out and get a nice, good patch that will bridge the gap into a ultimate resurfacing project.
Yeah, and I've got those, and
Yep.
I just want to make sure that they're included as part of this contract, where we're not kicking the can for another year.
Yeah, and I would say encourage, if you got people reaching out to you, get them to use 311. That's going to be the best mechanism, because the guy sitting there working for Mark, that's going to be the receipt of that. He's going to have to decide, hey, do I send our city forces out to do the single pothole, or do I need to exercise the contract to go and do something that's larger?
Thank you.
We need to be thoughtful about this. So if somebody calling in, they're gonna say we need a patch, or we need, a pothole fix.
Yeah.
And it may be a situation where the pothole needs fixing, but it's in one of these cancerous areas where you got 50 potholes. So somehow we've got to differentiate between that single and the bulk. I don't know how 311 is gonna actually deal with it.
All our, when we go out and evaluate the potholes, if, our pothole crew gets a 311.
Hey, if you could come to the mic.
Yep.
Sorry. So our pothole crew gets a 311 request when it comes in, and when they go out there, anytime there's more than 2 patches in that area, they will mark it and report it. And then our contract, our pothole or asphalt contract, will mark that as a future add to the asphalt contract. And then basically what we do is we look at all those things that have multiple potholes in that area, and then rack and stack on the worst areas to try to get those done first. So that's the current process we're working. Unfortunately, the money that we have on the asphalt contract doesn't go really far. And so, we're just kind of racking and stacking as the worst areas, the ones that are potholes on top of potholes that, you know, the patches just don't stick anymore because it's so bad. So.
Right, but just finding those areas, I think is there are a lot of factors that obviously go into it. So for example, I've got a neighborhood that's got generally good roads throughout the neighborhood. The resurfacing contract that we're going to let, you know, later on this year, there's not enough money to get them, you know, fully taken care of. This go around, it's going to be another at least 2 years before we get around to them. But there are, you know, just some entry points, or you know, that gets heavy use where it absolutely makes sense, and we can put all of the concerns of the neighborhood to ease with just this one, you know, surface area being patched.
Yeah.
And so weighting those, you know, based on just 311 calls, you know, say our neighborhoods haven't made the calls up to this point. If you're evaluating them, they're going to miss out.
Yeah, and it won't be just the 311 is just going to be one tool. Mark's folks are working very closely with my folks that manage the big resurfacing projects to make sure if we've got a paving contractor that's going to be there in 2 months or they're already under contract, we're probably not going to go out and do that spot repair. We're going to wait till the big contract gets there. But if we know we're planned and it's, you know, it's 2 years out or 4 years out, and in those planning cycles, those are the ones that we want to try to get where if the majority of the neighborhood is okay, but you got an isolated repair or two that's just starting to fall apart and it's starting to be pretty taxing on his resources. We want to put those to rest where we're just not, you know, we're just not utilizing that pothole truck as much as we have to. Okay.
Mr. President, Nick, well, I got you. Kind of the Bible that I use is that that road surfacing assessment, I guess 5 years maybe ago, I guess is when y'all
2018, 2019, right?
Do you see, I guess, that getting redone again, and then also encompassing the newly annexed areas? Because I'm starting to get some questions, you know, not just potholes, but about resurfacing.
A great question, and absolutely, I think in next year when we start the CIP cycle again, we'll be reaching, you know, obviously communicating that with everybody. I think that's been a very, very good tool to answer questions and to plan work out. And absolutely, yes, we're going to want to encompass the annexed area. And the other big thing, I think it'll give everybody a good snapshot in time, because you get the streets all looked at one time by one neutral set of eyes. That's what these firms specialize in, and we'll be able to see if the increased capital spending and resurfacing has actually lifted the overall network up. And that's what I have to believe that's the case. I mean, you drive around town and you feel it, but we'll have a real number to be able to gauge that against.
Yeah, Nick, I think I'd like to join Josh. I think the survey that we did back in 1819 has been very, very helpful. I got an email sitting in my box right now from a resident that wants to get the streets in the neighborhood resurfaced. Well, you look at the survey, they're all in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got something I can write him back and say, look, we did this survey. Your streets are all, I got miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of streets that are in much worse shape. So we're just not going to be able to get that to those in the near future. But I got some data behind it to support that decision. So I think it's been really very, very helpful, not only in responding to constituents, but in deciding which ones we are going to get repaved.
Yeah, from the planning perspective of it, I mean, it's been imperative. I mean, it's perfect.
One other thing. I'd ask that we take 08197, 08198, and 08199 by consent. These are $15,000 expenditure, a $46,000 expenditure, and a $39,000 expenditure.
197, 198, 199.
That's it.
Okay.
All right, everybody good with that?
37, 202, consider the application of Top Cat Limousine to operate a shuttle service. Call for public hearings 41203. Call for public hearing to rezone property located 255, 257, and 259 Dogwood Drive from R1 to B1, scheduled April 2nd. Announcements.
council?
Mr. President, I've got this amendment as we discussed earlier. I'd like to get it added on the agenda today with your approval.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Mr. President?
Mr. Penn?
No, thank you, Mr. President. On this past week, I had the opportunity to meet with pastors throughout my district. We had a great meeting. We had a great turnout. So I want to thank all the pastors that came out. To the pastors that couldn't attend because they already had engagements. I did receive your email. We had a great time talking about ways to work together as a community to create unity and strength, and ways to work with youth in our city. So one of the ways that we're going to be talking and implementing in the near future is adopting a school. So we're asking every church in District 1 to adopt the school. The churches that were there agreed to do that. They want to be engaged, and some are already implementing that program. So more information will be coming about that. We're working together as well on June the 1st to put on an event at LaFleur Stadium, where we will bring speakers to engage with the youth in the community. So it's a lot of things are taking place where we're engaging young people and trying to work to solve these issues in our community. I also want to thank the administration for supporting a lot of these initiatives. On March the 2nd, we will have another peace forum, and the goal of these peace forums is basically what just took place with the pastors. We have to start creating these engaging conversations and figuring ways where we can work together. And that will be March the 2nd from 1 p.m. to 2:30, and it will be located at the Docks Community Center. And this is the opportunity. I know some people didn't get an opportunity to speak at the last one because we had other organizations that we wanted to show all the resources that the city of Mobile already provide. So now we'll have an opportunity to hear from residents here in the community. So make sure if you would like to come out, kind of share your concerns or any ideas that you might have on March the 2nd. Thank you, Mr. President.